Okay, today we're going to be looking at a quick photo analysis of kimchi, a very traditional and very popular food in South Korea and the Korean Peninsula. Basically, kimchi is a fermented cabbage dish made with other vegetables and spices and ingredients, but the key elements usually are going to be red chilies and cabbage, and it's fermented. And you see it literally you see it at every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I cannot think of anything in American cuisine that is quite like kimchi. We're going to be looking at this photo analysis. We're going to be using what's called an ESPN and high analysis. And so in your notebooks, you're going to take out a sheet of paper and you're going to divide the top half into 4 squares. So on the top half of your paper, you're going to have something that looks like this. And the ESPN represents economic, social, political, and environmental factors. So looking at the image that you're going to see, can you identify some contributing factors and analysis, the explanation of what's happening and what is present in the image you're about to see? In the bottom half of your paper, you're going to divide into 3 columns to highlight the high part, or the healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Now, you don't have to have equal bullet points for each one. Some images, or in this case, this analysis might have more in one area than another, but do your best to try to identify something in each of these as part of this analysis. So, once you've got those things entered in your notebook, you may want to pause this on the image so you can look at it for a longer period. But this image was taken in South Korea, in the southern part of the country. It is of a traditional woman at a roadside stand making kimchi, and you can see in her mixing bowl, cabbage and some of the chili mixtures and the ingredients surrounding her. You also see the styrofoam boxes lined with plastic surrounded by her, along with some refrigeration units behind her. So pause it if necessary and try to identify elements from the ESPN and high areas that we just identified. Before I move on, I just thought this was interesting because about a week after I took that photo, I walked into a local Costco, and lo and behold, I found on an end cap boxes and boxes and boxes of kimchi that had been exported from South Korea and actually ended up on the shelves of Costco in Maplewood, Minnesota. Didn't know you could get it there, but I have to admit I was never looking for fermented cabbage. So let's take a look at these 4 areas, the ESPN analysis. And basically, if we look at the economic things, we know Samsung for smartphones, but one of the things that they have been able to do is make very specific and specialized refrigerators for the fermentation process that optimize that for this for kimchi. The image also reflects the local and global scale of economic activity that kimchi has become, especially when you look at that Costco slide. We can also see that it's going to reflect the agricultural or land use. What do they actually grow there? It's not likely that that woman was importing cabbage just to produce the kimchi that you saw at that table. Socially, we can see the actual influence of kimchi. On average, Koreans eat about 40 pounds of kimchi per year. So that again also reflects the economic importance of it because it is a very widely consumed dish. And it reflects a lot of the traditional culture going back several centuries. I mean, literally going back prior to the 1500s. Korean kimchi is a very strong reflection and embraced by Korean culture. On a more lighter note, kimchi is the word that Koreans use when they're taking a picture instead of cheese that we often have used growing up and even today in photos. Politically, a good example, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but during the Vietnam War, President Park of South Korea implored Lyndon Johnson to supply his sort of South Korean troops with kimchi just to help with morale. The introduction of chilies in the late 1500s, early 1600s 1600s was a result of a contact with the West. It's not the chili is not something that was originated locally. And the environment factors. If we look at where, and what conditions cabbage thrives and chilies, these are ideal for Korea. And then when you add modern technology, it has allowed it to be grown and produced on a much wider scale as well. If we look at the healthcare education infrastructure, you can see healthcare. Kimchi is actually one of the healthiest, recognized as one of the healthiest foods you can eat, not only for what it has in nutrients and the nutritional benefits, but also because of some of the ties to cancer, even things, more recent maladies such as the avian flu, and is known traditionally for something that aids digestion. So incredible benefits in terms of healthcare. Education, especially looking at the role of women there, is that kimchi is a very respected and valued skill, producing it. And so women that know how to make traditional kimchi have incredible status and stature within Korean society. It's also an empowering economic activity for women, especially if they are widowed or single, especially for traditional women to be able to produce it both locally and within their own family. And then infrastructure, we could look at it on both a small scale and large scale, but the introduction of the refrigeration, as we mentioned, is important for the global network or consumption, but even locally, the styrofoam boxes show that is being produced to be transported somewhere. And likely the quantities and the size of the production that you saw in that image was showing the limitations, not only in the amounts, but in terms of accessibility, that those containers were relatively small. And so when you look at, and if you look in the backdrop, you could see that it's a very hilly or mountainous location. So accessibility is difficult, and that there's going to be some need for refrigeration, and so distance might be limited given the styrofoam containers. So there you go. There's a quick analysis. Again, you may have had something more than what is presented here, but these are some of those core ideas, and hopefully this is something that we will be doing throughout the rest of the semester.